My ex said I was nothing without him. 8 months later, he found out exactly how wrong he was. Last year on my 25th birthday, I thought my boyfriend Lloyd was finally going to propose. He stood up in front of my closest friends and family and clinked his beer bottle until everyone went quiet. I held my breath. Then he proudly announced that he was finally leaving me. For my wealthy best friend Christina, everyone stood still while he thanked me for being the perfect stepping stone. "What are you talking about?" I asked, almost unable to breathe. "You told me last week you wanted to marry me, to start a family. You made me pick out baby names. I worked 2 jobs to support your music career," I cried out, trembling, tears streaming down uncontrollably. "Yeah, and I appreciate that. Just like how I appreciate you introducing me to Christina," he said, putting his arm around my best friend who'd been sitting right next to me all night. "You're evil," I muttered. "Whoa, don't blame me when you were the one reaching for scraps when I'd been dropping hints for you to end the relationship for weeks. You left me no choice but to do this," he explained like he was doing me a favor. That's when Christina stood up. I thought she was going to defend herself or apologize. Instead, she said something I'll never forget. "You failed the test." She quickly pushed his hands away from her. Lloyd's face twitched. "What?" "Like I said, you failed the test." Christina looked at me and gave an apologetic look. "I told you he was a parasite, someone using you for money while lying about the band for months. His band kicked him out 6 months ago because he never showed up to practice. Instead, he was out on dates with other girls." She pulled out screenshots of the conversation she had with the band as well as videos and pictures of Lloyd on different dates. I felt sick to my stomach. "Why didn't you just tell me?" I whispered. "I tried. I really did. But you kept defending him, so I had no choice but to bait him." "I'm so sorry," she said gently. Then she asked the security guards to escort Lloyd out. "Wait, where am I supposed to go?" Lloyd's voice cracked, realizing he'd been living in my apartment for 2 years. "Not our problem," Christina said. They dragged him out, still yelling about how we'd regret this, how he was going places, how we were nothing without him. But for the next few months, I heard from friends that Lloyd ended up couch surfing and burning every bridge when people realized what a leech he was. Last I heard, he was selling plasma twice a week just to eat. Then one night at 2 a.m., he texted me, "I need your help." The first message read, "I have an interview at a tech company. They need an address for the background check. Please, just say I still live with you. Tell them we're still together. I really need this job. Please. Remember all those songs I wrote for you?" He'd never written me a single song. Not one. "And those flowers I gave?" Flowers he picked from public parks and neighbors' yards. "Just this one favor. I know you still love me." I didn't reply right away. I only sent him all the proof of his love. 2 years of lease payments all under my name, bills he never contributed to, even dating profiles that Christina had found showing he'd been actively looking for partners while he was still with me. And the video from my birthday party where he called me a stepping stone in front of my own parents. "Maybe I can show them this too," I texted back. Lloyd started typing immediately, sending rapid-fire angry responses. "Oh, you think you're so hot now? You were nothing without me. Just a boring worker bee. The only interesting thing about you was me. I made you interesting. Without me, you were just another corporate drone." "Really? I'll be sure to ask my new boyfriend that," I replied. "He's the CFO for the company you're interviewing with." Then our chat fell silent. For 1 whole minute until different messages started flooding in. Apologies, begging, threats, more apologies. I honestly didn't read them. Just forwarded everything to my boyfriend, who promptly sent it to the hiring manager to process the blacklisting. But just as things started getting quiet, Christina suddenly called me. Huge emergency. It's about Lloyd. Check your DMs ASAP." My hands shook nervously as I opened up our chat. I froze and cursed under my breath. Because this time, it wasn't just apologetic begging. It was something else entirely. Christina sent me a link with just 3 words above it. "I'm so sorry." I clicked it and my phone screen loaded a plain black website with a password already entered. There were video thumbnails. Lots of them. I recognized my bedroom in the first one, my bathroom in another, my living room. I clicked the bedroom thumbnail and the video started playing. It was me, getting dressed after a shower last month. The camera angle was from my bookshelf. I could see everything. My hands started shaking so bad I almost dropped my phone. I clicked another video. Me sleeping. Another one. Me and Christina talking on my couch about Lloyd 2 weeks ago. Another. Me crying alone after the birthday party. There were dozens of videos, maybe hundreds, all of me, in my own apartment, doing normal private things nobody should ever see. I felt like I was going to throw up. My phone buzzed with another message from Lloyd. "See? I have everything. 2 years of footage. You in the shower. You changing. You with other guys before we dated. All of it. Help me get this job or I post everything. Your family will see. Your coworkers. Everyone." Another message came through. I already sent the link to 3 people as insurance. If you try anything, they post it for me. Then another. "You have 24 hours. Just tell them I still live there. That's all you have to do." Christina called again and I answered but couldn't speak at first. She asked if I saw it and I managed to say yes. She told me not to respond to Lloyd at all. Not a single word. She said we needed to document everything right now before he could delete anything. She was already looking up lawyers who handle this kind of thing. I opened my laptop with shaking hands and started taking screenshots. Every single message from Lloyd. Every threat. The website link. I tried to download the videos, but the site wouldn't let me. So I used my phone to record my laptop screen playing each video. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I felt dirty. Violated. Like my own home had been poisoned. How long had those cameras been there? What else did he record? Did he watch me every day? I took screenshots of the website layout and the video thumbnails. Christina sent me a document to fill out with exact timestamps of every message and threat. She said lawyers need detailed records. I spent the next hour going through everything. Lloyd kept sending more messages. Apologizing, then threatening, then apologizing again. Each one made me feel sicker. He said he didn't want to do this, but I forced his hand. That if I just helped him this one time, he'd delete everything. That he still cared about me and didn't want to hurt me. Then 5 minutes later, he said I was a selfish person who deserved whatever happened. Christina called back and said she found someone. A lawyer named Silas Tucker who handles privacy violation cases. She already called his office and explained the situation. He said he could meet first thing tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. She gave me his number and told me to call him myself to confirm. I called and Silas answered right away. His voice was calm and professional. He asked me 3 questions. Did I consent to being recorded? Number. Did the person threaten to release the footage? Yes. Did I have proof of the threats? Yes. He said to preserve everything and not respond to any more messages. He'd see me at 8 a.m. at his office. The address was downtown. After I hung up, I just sat there staring at my apartment. Every corner felt wrong now. Where were the cameras? How many were there? I started looking around my bedroom, behind picture frames, under furniture, in the vents. I couldn't find anything, but that didn't mean they weren't there. Lloyd lived here for 2 years. He had so much time. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined him watching those videos. Watching me. I got up 3 times to check different spots for cameras. The bathroom mirror, the closet, behind my dresser. Nothing. But they had to be somewhere. The footage was real. I saw it. At 7 a.m., I gave up trying to sleep and got ready. I brought my laptop, my phone, and a folder with printed screenshots. Christina texted asking if I wanted her to come with me, but I said no. I needed to do this myself. Silas's office was in a tall building downtown. The lobby was quiet. I took the elevator to the 9th floor and found his office at the end of the hall. The receptionist told me to go right in. Silas was younger than I expected. Maybe late 30s. He shook my hand and pointed to a chair across from his desk. I sat down and pulled out my laptop. He asked me to start from the beginning. I showed him the birthday party video first. Him announcing he was leaving me. Christina revealing the test. The security guards dragging him out. Then I showed him Lloyd's texts from 2 weeks ago, begging for help with the job application. My refusal. His angry messages. Then the threats about the recordings. Finally, I showed him the website. Silas's face got darker as he clicked through the thumbnails. He asked if I gave Lloyd permission to record me. I said no. Never. I didn't even know the cameras existed until last night. He asked if Lloyd ever lived at my address. I said yes for 2 years, but he never paid rent. Everything was in my name. Silas took notes while I talked. He asked about the 3 people Lloyd claimed he sent the link to. I said I didn't know who they were, or if that was even true. Silas said it didn't matter. What Lloyd did was clearly illegal. Recording someone without consent in their private home. Distributing intimate images. Extortion. Maybe even harassment. He said we had 3 immediate steps. First, file a police report today. Second, send Lloyd a cease and desist letter demanding he remove all recordings and stop contacting me. Third, contact the website host with an emergency takedown request. He said the website host had to comply with removal requests for illegal content. Silas asked if I wanted him to handle everything. I said yes. He said he'd draft the cease and desist letter today and help me file the police report this afternoon. I left his office feeling slightly better. At least I was doing something. At least there were steps. I called Mara from my car. She answered on the second ring and I told her everything. The cameras, the threats, the website. She was quiet for a moment, then said she was so sorry. I told her Lloyd might try to cause trouble at her company since I refused to help him. She said not to worry. She'd document everything and make sure she wasn't involved in any decisions about him. She'd already recused herself anyway because we were dating. But she said her HR director Rosa probably needed to know about the threats since Lloyd specifically mentioned the company. I said that was fine. I'd give a statement about what happened. Just the facts. Mara said Rosa would reach out to me directly. After we hung up, I drove to my apartment. Christina was already there waiting in the parking lot. She had her laptop and some kind of camera detector device she ordered online. We started in my bedroom. She moved slowly along the walls, checking every shelf and picture frame. I searched through my closet. After 20 minutes, Christina stopped at my bookshelf. She pointed to a tiny black dot between 2 books. It was so small I never would have noticed it. She took pictures of it from every angle before carefully removing it. It was a wireless camera, smaller than a quarter. We found the second one behind my bathroom mirror. Lloyd had loosened the frame just enough to slide it in. The third one was inside my living room smoke detector. Christina photographed each location and each device. She put them in separate plastic bags and labeled them. I felt sick looking at them. These tiny things had been watching me for months. maybe years, recording my most private moments. Christina said we needed to take them to the police today along with all the other evidence. I nodded. At least now we had proof. Physical proof that Lloyd had violated my privacy in the worst possible way. 3 tiny devices that had been watching me for months, maybe even years. We bagged them carefully and drove straight to the police station where Frederick took our statement and logged everything as evidence. He told us the investigation would take time, but having the physical cameras helped a lot. That same day, while I was still at the police station, my phone started buzzing with messages from people I hadn't talked to in months. I checked and saw Lloyd had posted something vague on his social media about crazy exes ruining his life with false accusations. He made himself sound like the victim, like I was making things up to hurt him. At least 6 mutual friends messaged me asking what was going on and if Lloyd was okay. I felt sick reading his post, but I didn't respond to anyone. Christina saw it too and got mad on my behalf. She posted a public comment on his post saying Lloyd was under police investigation for illegal recording and that everything I said was true. She kept it simple and factual, but it was enough. Within an hour, half the people who commented supporting Lloyd had deleted their comments and gone quiet. The ones who really knew him probably weren't surprised. 2 days later, I got a message from Dylan Whitehead, one of Lloyd's old bandmates. He said he saw what happened and wanted me to know the real reason the band kicked Lloyd out. It wasn't because he missed practice like Christina thought. Lloyd had been stealing equipment and money from the band fund for months. Dylan said he had receipts and bank statements and he was willing to give a statement to the police if it helped my case. I forwarded everything to Frederick and thanked Dylan for reaching out. Christina had also given me the name of a therapist, Yuna Nakamura, who worked with people dealing with privacy violations and hidden camera trauma. I called and got an appointment for the next week. My first session with Yuna was hard because I had to explain everything out loud to a stranger. She asked about the cameras, about how I felt in my own apartment now, about whether I was sleeping or eating normally. I told her I kept checking every corner for more cameras even though Christina and I had swept the whole place. I told her I felt watched all the time even when I knew I was alone. Yuna didn't act like I was crazy or overreacting. She said what I was feeling was normal after what Lloyd did. She helped me make a safety plan that included changing my locks, varying my daily routine so I wasn't predictable, and writing down names of people I could call if I had a panic attack. Just having a plan written down made me feel a little less helpless. At least I was doing something instead of just being scared. 3 days after my first therapy session, Frederick called with an update that made everything worse and better at the same time. They had gone through Lloyd's laptop and external hard drives and found more footage, not just of me, but of other women he had dated before me. I wasn't his only victim. There were at least 2 other women he had recorded without permission in their own homes. Frederick said they were reaching out to these women now and that the additional evidence made the case much stronger. Learning about the other victims hit me in a weird way. Part of me felt less alone because it wasn't just me. It wasn't something I did wrong that made him do this. But I also felt angry that Lloyd had a pattern, that he'd done this before and kept doing it. Frederick said the prosecutors were taking the case very seriously now because of the multiple victims and the clear pattern of behavior. That same week, I got an email from Rosa Mendez, the HR director at Mara's company. She said Lloyd's application had been officially withdrawn from consideration due to the ongoing criminal investigation. The company had a strict policy about not hiring people who were under investigation for crimes involving dishonesty or violations of trust. Rosa thanked me for providing my statement and said everything had been handled properly. I felt relieved knowing Lloyd wouldn't get that job, that there were actual consequences happening. But then Lloyd sent me another message that made my hands shake when I read it. He said I had destroyed his life and he had nothing left to lose. The threat was clear even though he didn't say it directly. I screenshot the message immediately and sent it to Silas. He called me within 10 minutes and said we were filing for a temporary restraining order today. Not tomorrow, today. He said the implied threat was serious enough that a judge would grant it. That night, I was trying to calm down and watch something mindless on TV when Christina called me freaking out. Lloyd had posted my address online with a caption calling me a lying manipulator who ruined an innocent man's life. He included my apartment number and everything. Christina and I both took screenshots from our phones showing the timestamp and sent them to Silas and Frederick right away. I reported the post to the social media platform, but I knew it had already been seen by dozens of people. Silas called me at 7 in the morning and told me to meet him at the courthouse by 9. The judge had agreed to hear the emergency restraining order request because of Lloyd's escalating threats and the address posting. I got dressed quickly and met Silas in the courthouse lobby where he walked me through what would happen. The hearing only took 15 minutes because Silas had prepared everything perfectly with screenshots of Lloyd's threats, the address posting, and Frederick's police report about the hidden cameras. The judge looked through the evidence without saying much, then signed the order right there. Lloyd couldn't contact me in any way and had to stay at least 500 feet away from my apartment and my workplace. If he violated the order even once, the police could arrest him immediately without needing any other reason. Silas made 3 copies of the signed order before we left the courthouse. One for me, one for building security, and one to keep in his files. I felt a little safer knowing there was an actual legal document protecting me now, instead of just hoping Lloyd would leave me alone. After the courthouse, I went straight to my apartment building and found the security guard at the front desk. His name was printed on a badge, but I just called him Sir while I explained the situation. I showed him the restraining order and pulled up Lloyd's photo on my phone so he could see exactly who to watch for. The guard took a picture of Lloyd's photo with his own phone and said he would share it with the other guards who worked different shifts. He promised to call the police right away if Lloyd showed up anywhere near the building. I thanked him and went upstairs feeling like I had at least done something concrete to protect myself. That afternoon, my phone started getting messages from 2 different numbers I didn't recognize. Both messages said Christina had given them my contact information, and they needed to talk to me about Lloyd. My first thought was that Lloyd had convinced some friends to harass me, but then I read the full messages. These were women Lloyd had dated before me. One lived 3 states away, and the other was local, but had moved to a different neighborhood after breaking up with Lloyd. They had both seen the social media posts about Lloyd being investigated and wanted to share their own stories. I called Christina first to make sure this was real and not some trick. She confirmed she had connected these women to me after they reached out to her asking questions. I texted both women back and we arranged a video call for that evening. The first woman's name was Olympia Larson and she was 28 years old. She had dated Lloyd 4 years ago for about 8 months before she caught him stealing money from her wallet. The second woman didn't want to share her full name yet but said I could call her Jay. Jay had dated Lloyd right before me, and their relationship had only lasted 5 months. Both of them told similar stories about Lloyd moving in quickly, never contributing to bills, lying about having a job or music career, and cheating constantly. But the worst part was what they found after Lloyd moved out. Olympia discovered a hidden camera in her bedroom that had been disguised as a phone charger. Jay found 2 cameras, one in her bathroom and one in her living room. Both women had gone to the police in their cities, but the cases hadn't gone anywhere because Lloyd had already moved on, and they couldn't prove he was the one who planted the cameras. We decided to create a group chat so we could share information and support each other. Having other people who understood exactly what I was going through made me feel less alone and less crazy for being so upset. Olympia told us she had recently connected with a lawyer who thought they could reopen her case now that there was evidence of Lloyd doing the same thing to multiple women. She was working with police in her city to file new charges against Lloyd for the recordings he made of her. The lawyer thought the pattern of behavior across multiple victims would make the case much stronger. I told them about Silas and asked if it would help for our lawyers to talk to each other. Olympia thought that was a good idea and said she would ask her lawyer to reach out to Silas. The next day, Silas called me with an update. Olympia's lawyer had contacted him, and they were working together to share evidence between cases. The prosecutors in both cities were now talking to each other about Lloyd's pattern of behavior. Silas explained that having multiple victims in different places could lead to more serious charges because it showed Lloyd was deliberately targeting women and repeating the same crimes. Federal charges might even be possible if they could prove Lloyd transported the recordings across state lines. That same week, I finally worked up the courage to call my parents and tell them what had happened. I had been avoiding it because I didn't want to worry them or admit how badly I had messed up by staying with Lloyd for so long. My dad answered the phone and I asked if Mom was there too, so I could tell them both at once. They put me on speaker and I started explaining everything from the beginning. I told them about the birthday party and Christina's test, and how Lloyd had been lying about the band for months. Then I had to explain the worst part about Lloyd living off my money for 2 years while I worked 2 jobs. My mom made a sound like she was going to cry when I told her that, but the hardest part was explaining about the cameras and the recordings. My dad got really quiet and then really angry. He started asking why I hadn't told them sooner and saying they would have helped me get away from Lloyd if they had known. I tried to explain that I hadn't known how bad things were until Christina showed me the proof. My mom wanted to fly out immediately to stay with me and make sure I was okay. I asked her to wait until things were more settled, because I was already overwhelmed with the legal stuff, and having her there would make me feel like I needed to take care of her feelings too. She didn't like that answer but agreed to wait a few weeks. Having to explain everything out loud to my parents made the whole thing feel more real and more painful. Saying the words about the cameras and the recordings to my own mother made me feel dirty and ashamed, even though I knew it wasn't my fault. A few days later, Christina and I had our first real fight since all of this started. We were at her place going through some old photos to find more evidence of Lloyd's lies when she mentioned something that made me stop cold. She said she had suspected Lloyd might be recording me months ago, but didn't want to say anything without proof. I felt my whole body tense up when she said that. I asked her why she wouldn't at least warn me to be careful if she thought something was wrong. Christina tried to explain that she didn't want to accuse Lloyd of something so serious without being sure, and she was worried I would just defend him like I always did. But I was hurt that she had kept that suspicion from me. Even a vague warning would have made me more careful about what I did in my own apartment. We argued for almost an hour about her testing approach and whether she should have told me her suspicions. I told her that keeping information from me wasn't protecting me. It was just controlling the situation in a different way than Lloyd had. Christina got defensive at first, but eventually admitted I had a point. We both needed some space after that conversation, so I went home and we didn't talk for 2 days. When Christina finally called me, she apologized sincerely for not being more direct with me about her concerns. We had a long conversation about boundaries and communication. I explained that her testing approach, even though it came from a good place, sometimes felt like she didn't trust me to handle information or make my own choices. Christina said she understood and promised to be more direct going forward, instead of trying to manipulate situations to prove points. We agreed that our friendship needed clearer communication and more trust in each other's judgment. The same week, Mara got called into a meeting with someone from her company's board. The meeting was about potential ethics concerns, since she was dating someone who had been involved in a complaint against a job candidate. Mara was worried this could affect her position at the company, even though she had followed all the proper procedures. She spent the evening before the meeting going through all her documentation to show that she had recused herself from anything involving Lloyd as soon as she knew about the situation. She had never been part of the hiring discussions for his position and had immediately disclosed our relationship to Rosa in HR. The next day, Mara called me after the meeting and said it had gone well. The board liaison had reviewed all her documentation and confirmed she had handled everything correctly by recusing herself right away. The company sent Mara a formal letter the next day, stating that the board had reviewed her actions and found she followed every rule correctly. They backed her completely and made it clear that Lloyd's attempt to cause problems for her had failed. Mara was relieved but also angry that Lloyd had tried to drag her into his mess just because she was dating me. 2 days later, Frederick called with a major update. Lloyd had been officially charged with multiple counts of illegal surveillance and distribution of intimate images. Because there were victims in different states, the federal prosecutor's office was also looking at the case to see if they wanted to add federal charges. Frederick explained that having victims across state lines made this a bigger deal legally and could mean harsher penalties. I felt a weird mix of satisfaction and nervousness hearing that Lloyd was facing real criminal charges. Within a week, Lloyd's parents hired him a lawyer who reached out to Silas about working out a deal. The lawyer said Lloyd's family wanted to avoid going to trial and were willing to accept responsibility if the charges could be reduced. Silas told me this was pretty common in cases like mine because trials are expensive and unpredictable for everyone involved. He scheduled a meeting to go over what the plea offer would look like and what my options were. At the meeting, Silas laid out the terms that Lloyd's lawyer was proposing. Lloyd would plead guilty to reduced charges, serve 2 years of probation instead of jail time, pay money back to all his victims for damages, and be required to register as a sex offender. Silas explained that I had input on whether to accept this deal, but the final decision belonged to the prosecutor since this was a criminal case. I asked a lot of questions about what the registration meant and whether probation was enough punishment. Silas was patient and explained everything in simple terms without making me feel stupid for asking. I told Silas I wanted Lloyd to face real consequences for what he did, but I was also completely exhausted from months of constant stress and anxiety. The idea of having to testify at a trial about the cameras and recordings and all the intimate details made me feel sick. A plea deal would mean closure, and I could move forward without having to relive everything in front of a courtroom full of strangers. Silas said that was a completely valid reason to support the plea deal, and he would communicate my position to the prosecutor. Over the next 2 weeks, the prosecutor met separately with me, Olympia, and the other victim to get our input on the plea deal. All three of us said similar things about wanting justice, but also wanting this to be over. The prosecutor decided to accept the deal, but with very strict terms. Lloyd would get 2 years of probation with mandatory counseling, have to pay full money back to all 3 victims, and register as a sex offender in whatever state he lived in. The court date was set for 3 weeks later. Christina and Mara both took time off work to come with me for support. Walking into the courthouse made everything feel suddenly real in a way it hadn't before. We sat in the courtroom waiting for Lloyd's case to be called, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. When Lloyd walked in with his lawyer, he looked smaller somehow, like he had shrunk. He didn't look at me or anyone else, just kept his eyes down. The judge asked him questions about whether he understood what he was pleading guilty to, and Lloyd had to say yes out loud to each charge. Hearing him admit to the illegal recording and distribution of images gave me this weird feeling of relief I hadn't expected. It was like having someone official confirm that I wasn't crazy or overreacting, that what he did was actually wrong and illegal. After Lloyd entered his guilty plea, the judge moved on to sentencing. Lloyd was ordered to pay me $15,000 to cover my therapy costs, the cameras he planted in my apartment, and general damages for what he put me through. His parents' lawyer stood up and said they would pay the full amount immediately to avoid setting up a payment plan. I guess they just wanted this over with too and had the money to make it go away quickly. The judge also extended my restraining order to 3 full years as part of the plea agreement. On top of that, Lloyd was specifically prohibited from posting anything about me or the case on social media and couldn't contact me or Olympia or the third victim in any way. If he violated any of these terms, he would go straight to jail. Lloyd signed all the paperwork and left with his parents without saying a word. Christina squeezed my hand as we watched him go. With the criminal case finally resolved, I could start focusing on actually healing instead of just surviving. Una and I had been working together for months, but now our sessions shifted to processing the trauma and rebuilding my sense of safety in my own space. She taught me techniques for managing the anxiety that still popped up randomly and helped me work through the anger I felt about losing 2 years of my life to someone who never cared about me. A week after the court hearing, I started looking at new apartments online during my lunch breaks at work. Every listing I clicked made me think about what Lloyd might have hidden in those places too, which Una said was normal, but exhausting. Christina texted me links to 3 buildings in her neighborhood, all with keycard entry systems and security cameras in every hallway. I toured the first one on Saturday morning and immediately felt different walking through the lobby. The building manager showed me a 1-bedroom on the 4th floor with big windows and a doorman who checked IDs before letting anyone past the front desk. Christina met me there and walked through every room with me, opening closets and checking behind mirrors while I filled out the application. The manager approved me within 2 days, and I signed the lease that same week, paying the deposit with money I had saved from not supporting Lloyd anymore. Moving day happened fast because I did not own much furniture after getting rid of everything Lloyd had touched. Christina hired movers who packed up my old apartment in 4 hours while I sat in her car outside, not wanting to be in that space any longer than necessary. Mara took the afternoon off work and met me at the new place with cleaning supplies and helped me wipe down every surface before the movers arrived with my boxes. She did not ask questions about why I needed to clean an already clean apartment, or why I checked every smoke detector and electrical outlet twice. We just worked together in comfortable silence until the movers showed up with my bed and couch and the few boxes of clothes and books I had kept. That night, Mara ordered pizza, and we ate sitting on the floor of my empty living room because I had not bought a kitchen table yet. She told me about a job opening at her company in a different department from hers, something in project management that paid $15,000 more than my current position. I had not planned on job hunting, but the idea of making more money and doing something new felt right after everything that happened. Mara helped me update my resume that night, and I submitted my application before she left. The apartment felt safer than anywhere I had lived before, with its keycard entry and doorman and neighbors I did not know. I slept better that first night than I had in months, waking up only once instead of 4 or 5 times like I used to. Over the next few weeks, Mara and I fell into an easy pattern of spending most evenings together, either at my place or hers. She never made me feel broken or damaged when I had bad nights where the anxiety came back strong. One Tuesday, I had a panic attack in the grocery store when I thought I saw Lloyd near the produce section, and Mara just took my hand and walked me outside without making a big deal about it. We sat in her car for 20 minutes while I calmed down, and she told me about her worst work meeting that day until I could breathe normally again. She never pushed me to talk about Lloyd or the cameras or the court stuff unless I brought it up first. That steady support got me through the worst parts of waiting for the legal process to finish. I started seeing which friends actually cared about me versus which ones just wanted drama to talk about. My friend Jessica kept texting, asking for details about the recordings and what was on them, and after the 3rd time, I just stopped responding. Another friend, James, posted something on social media about how breakups were always two-sided and people should not rush to judge, which felt like a direct shot at me. I unfriended him and did not feel bad about it. But my friend Aisha from college called me every Sunday just to check in and never asked for gossip or details. My coworker James brought me coffee twice a week and told me stupid jokes in the break room. Those people became my actual circle, smaller than before but way more real. Dylan reached out to me through Christina in early October, asking if I needed anything else for the case. I told him it was basically over, but asked if he would write down what he knew about Lloyd stealing from the band. He sent me a 3-page statement 2 days later detailing how Lloyd had taken equipment worth over $2,000 and sold it online, plus money he collected from gigs that he never split with the other band members. Dylan included dates and screenshots of their group chat where they confronted Lloyd about it. I forwarded everything to Olympia and the other victim through our group chat, and both of them said it matched their experiences too. Olympia had lent Lloyd money for a car repair that never happened. The other woman had paid for a weekend trip that Lloyd claimed was for a family emergency, but was actually a date with someone else. Reading Dylan's statement made me feel less stupid for trusting Lloyd because clearly he was just really good at lying and manipulating people. It was not about us being naive. It was about him being a skilled con artist who knew exactly what to say. 3 months after Lloyd's sentencing in November, I woke up one morning and realized I had slept through the whole night without any nightmares. It was the first time since finding the cameras that I had not dreamed about being watched or recorded. I could stay in my apartment alone for entire evenings without checking the windows every 10 minutes or looking for hidden devices. The constant anxiety that had been sitting in my chest for months started to feel lighter, like I could finally breathe all the way. I still had bad days where everything felt scary and overwhelming, but they were happening less often. Una said that was normal progress and not to expect a straight line of improvement. Some weeks were better than others, and that was okay. The job interview at Mara's company happened in mid-November and went way better than I expected. I talked about managing the legal case against Lloyd and coordinating with multiple victims across different states, and the hiring manager seemed impressed by how I handled such a complicated situation. They offered me the position 3 days later with a starting salary of $62,000, which was $18,000 more than I was making. I gave my 2 weeks' notice and started the new job in December. Having that extra money and more responsibility at work made me feel capable in a way I had not felt in years. I spoke up more in meetings and pushed back when I disagreed with something instead of just going along with whatever everyone else wanted. The confidence I got from standing up to Lloyd and dealing with lawyers and police and prosecutors translated into being way more assertive in other parts of my life. Right before Christmas, Olympia texted our group chat that her plea deal had been approved with the same terms as mine. The other victim got hers approved 2 weeks later. We set up a video call to celebrate and spent an hour just talking about how good it felt to have justice and closure. All 3 of us had been through similar experiences with Lloyd, and now all 3 of us had gotten legal recognition that what he did was wrong and criminal. Olympia was in California and the other woman was in Texas, but we made plans to meet up in person someday. Just knowing they were out there and understood what I went through made me feel less alone. Christina and I had a long conversation in January about our friendship and how we could do better going forward. I told her that the testing thing still bothered me, because it felt like she did not trust me to handle the truth about Lloyd. She admitted that she sometimes tried to control situations instead of just being honest and letting people make their own choices. We agreed to communicate more directly from now on and trust each other to handle difficult information. Our friendship actually felt stronger after that talk, because we addressed the real issue instead of just pretending everything was fine. She was still my best friend and always would be, but now we had better boundaries and more honest communication. By February, Mara and I had been dating for 8 months, and she brought up the idea of moving in together. We had basically been living together anyway since I stayed at her place most nights, or she stayed at mine. But this time felt completely different from when Lloyd moved into my apartment. Mara had her own career and money and was not looking for someone to support her. We talked about splitting rent and bills equally, and both our names being on the lease. She wanted a partnership where we both contributed and supported each other, not one person carrying the other. We found a 2-bedroom apartment in March and moved in together that same month. Having my own space and my own room if I needed it made me feel secure in a way I never felt with Lloyd. This relationship felt balanced and healthy, and like we were building something together as equals. In April, I got the restitution check from Lloyd's parents for $15,000. Part of me wanted to just put it all in savings and forget about it, but Christina suggested we take a vacation together. We booked a week in Mexico at a beach resort and spent 7 days doing absolutely nothing except laying by the pool and eating good food and laughing about everything that had happened. On the 3rd night, we were drinking margaritas, and Christina brought up my birthday party disaster from last year. We both started laughing about how we thought that night was the worst thing that could happen, not knowing about the cameras and the stalking and everything else that came after. The birthday party felt like nothing compared to what followed. But sitting there on that beach with my best friend, using money that Lloyd had to pay me as punishment for what he did, felt like the best possible ending to the whole terrible situation. On our last night in Mexico, Christina and I sat on the hotel balcony watching the sunset when she told me she had started volunteering with an organization that helps victims of digital privacy violations. She said my experience made her realize how many people go through similar situations without the resources or support to fight back. The organization provided free legal consultations, connected victims with attorneys, and helped with emergency housing when people needed to escape dangerous situations. Christina was using her money and connections to fund their expansion into 3 new cities. She showed me their website on her phone, and I saw testimonials from people they had helped. Stories that sounded so much like mine. Knowing that something good came from what Lloyd did to me made the whole nightmare feel less pointless. We flew home 2 days later, and I felt different walking into my apartment. The space that used to make me anxious now just felt like home again. I unpacked my suitcase, did laundry, and went grocery shopping like a normal person doing normal things. Una and I had our regular therapy session that week, and she noticed the change immediately. I was sleeping better, eating regularly, and not checking over my shoulder constantly. The trauma would always be part of my history, but it was not controlling my present anymore. I had my job, my relationship with Mara, my friendship with Christina, and a future that belonged to me. 6 months after Lloyd's sentencing, I got an email from his probation officer. The message confirmed that Lloyd was complying with all terms of his probation, attending his required counseling sessions, and had not violated the restraining order. He was working at a warehouse and living in a supervised halfway house. The system was actually working the way it was supposed to. I forwarded the email to Olympia and the other victim, and we all agreed it felt good knowing he was facing real consequences and being monitored. A few weeks later, Mara and I hosted a housewarming party at our new apartment. Christina arrived first with expensive wine and helped me set up the food. My parents drove in from out of state and brought homemade cookies. Dylan showed up with his new girlfriend and gave me a tour of his latest music project. Even Silas stopped by after work, bringing a plant for our balcony. I stood in our living room looking around at all these people who genuinely cared about me and realized I had built a real life without Lloyd. This apartment, this relationship, these friendships were all things I created for myself. Lloyd tried to destroy me with his cameras and threats and manipulation, but instead he just cleared out of my life and made room for something so much better. Sometimes the trash really does take itself out and you end up exactly where you are supposed to be.